There it is. Woo! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Modern Lending Podcast live. I'm back in the studio feeling feisty today. It's going to be a really fun conversation. I have with us right here I got to read it because he has two titles: Chief Information and Chief Technology Officer for loanDepot, Sudhir Nair. Now, we actually go back, Sudhir, to like old school Countrywide days. So I'm really excited to bring on Sudhir to talk about the future of mortgage technology, where it's going, because so many loan professionals, mortgage salespeople, see mortgage technology as either a threat, as something to be afraid of because it's going to take their job, or they see it as something that's going to be a savior. It's going to come in and it's going to do something that's going to radically change their lives. And there's a lot of myth and a lot of fuzz, and we're going to carve through that. So let's bring on Sudhir. Right on, Sudhir. Good to see you, my friend. Oh, I wish we could be in person, but COVID is just ravaging the country and it's making it hard. But thanks for joining today.
Good to see you. I like you. Looking good.
Oh yeah, no, I got my quarantine beard that I told my wife I was going to shave when we were back to work, and now it's looking bad. Like I'm never going to be able to shave it because we're virtual forever.
Still looks good on you though.
Oh man, so thank you for joining. We were talking a little bit before going live. You've been leading the charge at loanDepot now for a little over 9 months-ish, getting in, making changes, stirring things up. And I would love for you to share a little bit about your background, because people always, want to frame up like, who is this person that's running technology and information for loanDepot? So share a little bit about where you came from, what you're doing, and how you got into this space.
So technology has been my forte since I, left high school. So I went to computer school engineering school. So that's my undergrad. Did my grad also on information systems engineering. So there you go. So that's how it started.
Wait, I got to tell you this. You're going to laugh at me here, but I got to tell you this. So at school up at Berkeley, I took one computer science class, and just basic coding, just figuring out like how it all works. And I missed the final because I got my date screwed up. I was a freshman. I was stupid. And I went back to the teacher and said, can I make it up? And he's like, sure. And he made me do it all by hand. I had to handwrite all the code on this thing. And I failed miserably because I couldn't like check it. So that was the end of my coding experience.
I do have a story though that I got to tell, because I was not headed to the computer science school. Oh. I was headed into becoming a doctor. So I did start in that side of the house for a few weeks before I ended up, going into the engineering line and things like that.
That's awesome.
Then, first job was at Hewlett Packard, so did a lot of work there in terms of writing operating system and such. So it was mostly heavy duty tech, and writing databases, writing OS is really different than commercial applications and so on. And then that led me into another area, which was mostly to kind of detect fraud and, passport frauds and check frauds and so on and so forth. So it's a sort of a different type of, sophisticated algorithms, detection technology and so on and so forth. So spent a lot of time in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and things like that, implementing systems like that, engineering systems like that. And then I left on and moved on to other areas. So I came into, believe it or not, a supply chain retail industry. So it was the times when supply chain distribution retail was changing. And then there was also this threat of e-commerce, if you will, at the time that started. That was in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So as part of that industry, worked for a leader, software technology company that was a leader in that space. Did a lot of work there. The likes of several names that do not exist or have been consolidated to Amazon.
Seriously.
And worked on some really cool stuff there with routing logistics, distribution management, automation of some of the warehouse, inside the house, and the best route to take for a truck to deliver the item as fast as possible, and some really cool stuff like that. So got very much in that industry, and then joined Washington Mutual as
Yes.
the e-commerce and online banking team, which was the e-business team. So that's how I got into banking and financial services and so on and so forth. And then after launch of some of the very critical platforms there and getting them into the e-com side of the house, I was hired into Countrywide, which is the first time I actually got into the mortgage side of the land, and I had no experience in knowing anything about mortgages at that time, other than the fact I owned a home and paid my mortgage. That's all I knew about it. And so it was very interesting because I came in and saw the model that Countrywide had put together. It was actually the beginning of the boom. That was 2003, the beginning of the boom of rates going down and everything is increasing in terms of demand, and so on and so forth. Home affordability also is actually becoming pretty good. So I actually sat in a retail branch. I don't know if you recollect, in Santa Monica near the beach.
Yeah.
It's like on the 14th floor or something like that. For 2 months, I sat there because if I'm going to be developing technology, I better know what the business is. So I actually sat there side by side with the origination team there, kind of saw how they,
That's
originated loan. I actually did help, when the assistant was not available, I actually helped and I filled the 1003. I did all the
oh my gosh
connections, so that was fun. And then I actually responsible for taking the mortgage solution at Countrywide to the next level, which we did. Which, as you know, we had several different systems over there, so that was an incredible experience. And then on came into Bank of America, where I actually worked also on the servicing side of Countrywide and just on technology, of course, and then managed a very large servicing portfolio there. And then did a lot of transformation of that platform. And then after that, the Bank of America acquisition, I kind of worked on both servicing originations, some on the title and closing side of the house. And so that was the next path. And then after that, it took me on a path to work for Mr. Cooper. So where we launched Zoom, which is a marketplace with auction, and so kind of going into another digital transformation, you could say, but you could also argue it's actually a transformation of the real estate, process itself. And auction was a completely brand new, game, and doing an online auction was even cooler. So that was fun. Did there, and then I actually took a little bit of a hiatus into a completely different industry. I just wanted to, test my water somewhere else. So I went into higher education. So the largest provider of higher education online, a company, worked there. They actually manage online, programs for major universities in the U.S., about 55 of them, and things like that. So, and then I noticed how similar the industry was to what we do in the mortgage side of the house, which I actually, interestingly, if I look back, whatever I learned in supply chain and retail was actually portable into the mortgage industry, and it's portable into that. And then I came back into the mortgage space because I got all the experience I needed into some of the new technology areas in a new environment. And one of the things that I was very particularly interested is to get that external experience so we could bring it back into mortgage, because mortgage technology has always been in the backseat, if you will, and also very catching up pretty late and so on and so forth. So
you think it's just, I mean, like when I started in the game, like it was an MS-DOS based system that you had to tab through. You couldn't use the mouse. Like, that was like, and it was like that was the pinnacle of the tech.
Absolutely. So that's my journey, and here I am at loanDepot. And what a great time to be at, in loanDepot.
Oh, I know we're having a blast and this is fun. So real quick, we're getting a ton of fun comments and a bunch of viewers right now. Please type in where you're viewing us from. I love to kind of see that, just kind of like where people are tuning into right now. Most of the reach of this podcast comes later when people actually have time to like listen and consume. And so I know we're just diving into your day, but if you're choosing to join us right now, type it on the comments. In fact, Sudhir, give me 2 seconds because I got to click a button. Woo! All right. I'm shorthanded. I had to click a button and I see everybody. Bay Area, Nashville. Awesome. Now I got comments flowing in. So this is really cool. Mike Brown saying we need to get Sudhir one of these cool mics. Yes, we'll figure out how to do that. So, okay. So Sudhir, this is going to be fun. So now you're back in mortgage. You've got all this experience. You got a huge track record, tons of fans, which is fun. I was joking with you earlier how the bunch of people on LinkedIn were already being like, can't not wait to hear what Sudhir has to say. And to your comment earlier, man, technology in mortgage is behind. It's been behind for a long time. And so, let's just open the conversation up to where it's going and why did it take so long and what happened in that perspective, from your perspective? I'm assuming the crisis played a role, but what have you seen and where are we going and what are you excited about?
So I think, technology is it's not just in mortgage that it's actually pretty, backed up behind. But if you look at banking and, financial services industry as a whole, you still see a lot of challenges with technology being behind. I think the consumer banking side of it is probably, in a much better shape than some of the other, parts of financial services than where we are. And that's mostly because, it was more of a necessity than a need. So it just, the onset of the web revolution, which happened in the 90s, and then followed by the mobile revolution, which came after that in the 2000s, kind of changed a lot of that, and kind of made it more of a necessity than a choice. So I think that's one. But if you look at mortgages, just the sheer complexity, the nature of how you get a loan, because it's unlike a consumer lending environment or a credit card, etc. This is secure debt. You got to have your house is the security. So it's a complex process because it involves a lot of there's a lot of complexities involved that you got to make sure that it's not about checking off boxes and things like that. That's one. The other part of it is the decision-making process is very different. As an individual, if you think about it personally, the decision-making process to buy a home is extremely important. It's a life-changing event. It's a life event, right? Followed by that, to go and secure a loan is also a very emotional purchase, if you will.
Absolutely.
It's not like going to Amazon and buying something. That's not an emotional purchase. This one is very emotional.
Well, there's dopamine involved when you get your gift, when you get your package the next day. So there's a little bit of that going on. But you're right. You're totally right.
It's emotional also because you got decisions to make. As a borrower, consumer, I have decisions to make. So I cannot make those decisions sometimes without having all the information in front of me. So the first thing I would do is rely on an originator that I would work with. Why? Because that is the person that's going to help me get all the information as well as the permutation and combination of scenarios that based on my, my financial ability, as well as, the characteristics of the home that I'm, buying and so on and so forth. So that's a very complex, process if you think about it. And I always think, that if you work with an investment banker, if you work with a financial planner, you actually have that, information exchange and talk to them about how you want to manage your investments so that you have a good retirement fund. The originator or the loan officer that you work with is like that, because they have to be like that. They got to, because not every individual or a property is going to be the same. And so that three-way conversation between the property, the loan, and the individual is very, very different. That's a lot of permutation and combination. So that cannot be addressed without, having the right data, right information as in what is the right loan product that fits me. There may be 5 or 6 of them, and I'm sitting here thinking, wait, how do I make a decision? Which one should I go with? Right. So that's the complexity. Now, while this is happening and the complexity is still, there, on the other side, technology is just, on the consumerization of technology is just going in parallel at a very fast pace. Mobile phones came up. Okay, a lot of people think mobile phone came. All right, great, right? But it's what they forget is, remember the Sony Walkmans?
Yeah,
absolutely. They went away. Guess what happened to them? They came up in a very small hard disk, because the hard disk started condensing in form factor, and then all it had is a circle around it, and they called it an iPod, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened to Sony Walkman, if you remember.
I very well.
And then pretty soon, what happened to that, iPod is they put a camera on it.
Yeah, right? It's right here. Like,
right. And they put a phone on it, right? Now you got all of these condensed in one, and then they replaced remember the Nuvies, GPS? 100%. Those are gone. What happened to that? It's on your phone, right? So that was happening. That's what is happening to the consumer on, their day-to-day lives. Things have been changing. Things have, consolidated, and all of that is happening. The form factor of what you have in your pocket, in your hands, etc., also is very condensed, and so on and so forth. So all that is happening while mortgage is also happening on this side. But the absorption of technology in mortgage has not been as good as it should be. Agreed. And I think the challenge with that is because while we are very good to solve smaller problems, when I say we, the tech community, smaller problems like putting a Walkman or enabling a phone or things like that, we are not good at solving the complex workflow and processing and steps and checks and measures, etc., and putting that and enabling that to be much more technology. Now, why would you do that? Because you got to help them. The loan officer cannot be going at 5 different places to find all the information to provide to me to get me to make a decision, right? It should be relatively easy for them. And that's the challenge. And that's, no one sat down to kind of, what I would say is this: applied technology is the keyword, right? It is, you got to take a technology and you got to apply it. In order for you to apply it successfully, you got to understand the business. You got to understand the business process that's been involved. You got to look at where you can help Alec, produce more loans or close more loans. Because you cannot be working 12 hours a day and only closing like 1 or 2 loans, or selling 1 or 2 cars, or whatever it is.
But Sudhir, what's crazy about this is, as you talk to great producers and as you see, their ability isn't limited in how many leads they can get. I know a lot of really talented professionals, and their time is consumed by the process. And they have to scale and add expense. They have to hire assistants and coordinators and processors and processor twos, and you need more underwriters. And I think the old saying was, for every great originator every originator you hire, you have to hire like 2 to 3 operations people, to support them. And when I ask a loan officer, what's your day consist of, and if they're talented and they have large pipelines, it's in pipeline management and paper management, tracking down crap and sending it in this back and forth style system. And that's always been like the actual the thing that holds back, a guy from doing 10 deals who could do 50. So share with me your thoughts on that, and how can technology come in and provide solutions there?
I think the other part that the industry is probably a little bit lagging, and it's getting better, is around use of data.
Yes, absolutely.
We all keep saying data. Why is data important? We know data is very important. I got to look at my reports. Okay, that's one thing. But what I said earlier, in order for you to be successfully talking to a consumer to help them get a loan, you have to provide them with information.
Yeah.
What is information? It's knowledge combined with data. That's what information is. And we don't combine it that way.
Yeah.
We just look at it as what do you call a data issue.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then we look at that, and then we look at another issue as a business process issue. What we don't connect is you got to bring the knowledge component in there. Only then you can make it information that can be used by the loan officer or by the borrower or by others to make their decision faster and to get the right product, the right pricing, and so on. Now, on the underwriting, the processing side, I have a lot of empathy for those folks. You know why? Because they get a lot of, there's a lot of work, and if they will be more efficient, if you provide them with a good, right information at the right time, right, which is data and knowledge in front of them, along with their ability to manage their work, which we call as workflow, but that's what it really is.
Yeah.
You move it from one step to the next and to the next at a faster pace. So if we could start thinking about it that way, which is what I think the industry should start thinking about it very differently, is how do you take data, how do you take knowledge, package it into information, provide the right information at the right time, at the right steps. That's going to help that processor, underwriter, closer operate much faster, so they can actually spend time with their family after 5.
And by the way, how needed is that right now? record pipelines, record originations, and it's like, oh man, it's a lot of work.
See, that's the other thing, right? This is an example of when your demand increases, which is we have a demand, increasing demand.
Yeah.
Now you should be able to scale to that. Now, if you don't have the right set of automation and efficiencies powered by information, you're not going to be scalable. So you're going to spend 12 hours and 16 hours if you don't have the right, technology and automation in place to get to do that. I think that's another interesting point to think about. But the industry as a whole is pretty much, I would say, lagging still.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of efforts are underway to kind of, in multiple different areas to say, hey, this is a right opportunity to disrupt. It's right for disruption. I don't think it's a disruption challenge. It's much more of a transformation challenge.
I like that.
It's more of, how do we start providing mortgages smarter and helping the borrower and customer better? How do we improve the customer, relationship better? That's really going to be the play, and it's all going to be. I think the next big wave in mortgage is going to be information powered.
So, I love these kind of conversations because I like to live in fantasy land. But if you fast forward yourself to whatever point in the future you think that this transformation is completed. And I know tech is always a journey because you're always improving and you just continue to iterate. But what could that look like? What could it look like in the future as this stuff lands and changes? What do you see? So
if you go outside the financial services industry a little bit, right? You just look at technology in general.
Yeah.
I think the challenge with technology is to stay current and keep up with what's going on. Right. There's always if you can be a step behind, a couple of steps behind, but if you're like 10, 15 steps behind, you have a problem. So you got to go through a transformation to get to that, not more than 5 steps behind, right? That's the problem. Now, if you take that, in the mortgage industry, we are probably about 15, 20 steps behind.
Okay.
We need to get to that 5 steps.
Yep.
That's step one. I don't think that is just only that's the industry overall, if you look at it, right?
Yeah.
And then once you get to that 5 steps, then it actually becomes easier, believe it or not. It's easier if you have the right process and the right operating model in tech, and business. It is easier to keep up with that 5-year catch up than if you translate that into years instead of steps, right? 5-year catch up is better than a 20-year catch up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's kind of where it becomes easier, but it's really not 5 years. It's just 5 steps. And just keep it current. Stay aligned with what's happening in the technology world. This is for all my tech colleagues in the industry. You got to keep up. The other part is you have to wear your applied technology hat on. So if something cool comes on, you got to think about, all right, this is how I can apply it, and then say, hey, Alec, how do you feel if I can give you ability to kind of enable this, particular technology? And you will say, that makes totally no sense. I got my answer, right? Or you would say, that's interesting. Let me think about it. That's what I need, right? So the persuasion begins when you say no to me, right? So that's really what is also not happening, is just that conversation, the ability to realize and know the challenges that you're going through, be it at scale or be it business as usual. What are the challenges? Then addressing them, applying the right set of technology and tools. I also say this to many of my tech colleagues, you got to be careful. You cannot have hammer looking for a nail.
Yes, absolutely.
Then don't go buy and get technology, get excited about technology. Why? Because Amazon is using it, or Apple is using it, etc. See how you can apply it. Sometimes you may have to admit that it's not applicable to this industry or what I do. Move on. Otherwise, your hammer is going to still look for the nail and sit in your garage.
That's so true. That's so true. So, guys, we have a lot of viewers right now, and we're about 30 minutes in. If you have questions for Sudhir, please throw them into the comments. We'd love to answer them. And I always ask this: if you're watching this in the future, hit me with a hashtag bypass to let me know that you're engaging, even though it's not live. Or that you're not live with us. You're watching a repost or you're watching something else. But please, let's join the conversation. It's so much fun to do these live because we get to hear from you guys about what your questions are too. And it's not just Sudhir and I sitting in a room talking about mortgage tech, which is fun too, but different. So, Sudhir, what do you love about what you do?
I love new challenges, as in when I look at businesses and when I look at the ability to go and get into heavy demand, a lot of scale.
Yeah.
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
Can we manage the scale? Can we address that? How can we address it? And the how maybe through automation, the how maybe through much more stable systems, the how maybe through a whole bunch of different things. Interestingly enough, we are going through such a time right now. With everything that happened to COVID, guess what that did? We didn't have a choice.
What was that like trying to lead a tech industry and all the team through, this dramatic shift where everybody had to go home? What was that like for you and your team? Like, what was the environment like?
I think it was a big challenge. It's there's you know what they say, right? Necessity is the mother of invention.
No kidding.
That's what happened to us, quite frankly. We saw that unless we get the capability built in to get our folks to work remotely from anywhere, from home, etc., we are going to be, having challenges. You can't do that. It's not enough if you just do that. Then comes the next step, which is how do we keep our employees safe? Because they're operating in cyberspace. And when you operate heavily in cyberspace, bad actors come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to keep them safe, and you also have to secure, your data and your systems and so on and so forth. So there's the balancing act of that. The other part of it is this calls for a whole different level of business continuity than what was originally spoken, in the past, many a times I've seen, organizations say, well, BCP and disaster recovery and business continuity is a requirement because we got to have it's a compliance requirement.
Yep.
Yeah, but what happened here is not a compliance requirement. So so it's a health issue, it's a safety issue, created a challenge for the entire world, if you will. And in order for us to operate in that environment, we need a completely different line of thinking. And that's what we did in technology. We started thinking very differently. How do we enable remote capability, for example, for call center?
Yeah.
Right?
Great. Absolutely.
How do you do that? And then we had to think through that. We had to look at what are the different ways by which you can do that. We came up with a solution which is by far the best in the industry. That once you get that, the next step is how do you keep those systems resilient? How do you keep them stable?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that they are highly available, and so on and so forth, right? So we addressed that, and we kind of had different levels of thinking, and we brought them together. There's been a lot of debates amongst ourselves, which is kind of good. I think healthy debates are always good in technology, as long as you get a solution at the end of it, which we did. So we had a lot of good debates, and we are at a point where now we are thinking about, okay, what if a third-party system goes down? How can we still operate without that? And so we are enabling that, and we have now enabled such a different set of capabilities that it's just we can now operate from anywhere, and we can be operating very safely. Our systems will have the resiliency, if you will, to perform, and that's what all of you would like on the business side as well, right? And I think that's really what happened. So it was truly a wake-up call. It expedited the way for us. I can tell you for my team and I, it was a jolt that was given for us to start thinking how IT should operate differently. You can't wait for 3 months and 4 months to get something delivered. Why? Because it's a health issue. We're going remote. So you can't wait that long. So it changed our model. We started thinking differently, changed our model, it changed our internal processes to start thinking about delivering things much faster. So there's a lot of benefits, and we looked at it as an opportunity for us to come out of this leading in technology as well. And being a leading business is good, solid businesses. One of my former bosses always says this: good solid businesses have a good, solid technology team. And I think we are positioned for that, at loanDepot. So
what I want to echo, which is just so fun. First of all, I love hearing your mindset about how the challenge was exciting, how the challenge was something that you wanted to come out as a leader through, and you wanted to push the team through, and got you thinking differently. And there's such a strong parallel to our great salespeople who are having the similar challenges that this is presenting. I just talked to a guy today from New York who was saying, the normal line, which is, I can't do what I used to do. I used to be able to go out and see all these realtors. I used to be able to go out on weekends and go to open houses and go to board events and go to networking events and do pop buys at real estate offices where I had friends. And I can't do anything right now that I used to do. But he's starting to go all in on social media. He's starting to, that's how we connected. Because there is this silver lining of this. There's opportunity in hardship. There's opportunity in this time right now. And the people that are willing to lean into it and have the same mindset that you have, which is, I want to come through a leader, I want to come through stronger and better, are doing that. And it's really cool to see. I'm just imagining
something else with you. So I also have a little bit of a tenure in professional sports. That's what coaches teach you, right?
Yep.
It's about how do you stay resilient? How do you stay, to make sure that you can either sit down and think about everything that's going to go wrong, or do something about it to make it, how do I set it to go right? And I think that's really what, this environment has taught us.
William had a comment in there, and I think it'd be interesting to hear your take on it. Your take on it. Mortgage company versus fintech company, and fintech has become very buzzy as a word. It's been, there's lots of fintech companies and all that fun stuff, and then you got mortgage companies, which tend to be, I'll just kind of smash our industry. They tend to be, not sexy, kind of just, mortgage tech is like, but fintech sounds cool. And Anthony plays in the fintech space. How do you see the definition of fintech and mortgage tech and mortgage company? Are they a blend? Are they together? Quicken's going IPO and they're kind of positioning themselves as a fintech, / mortgage company. What's your take on that as a definition?
I think that you have a lot of these definitions that have come about as well. If you look at the onset of the e-commerce timeline, people say brick and mortars.
Yeah.
It can be click and mortars, right? And so on and so forth. But there's something about fintech that is very important and interesting at the same time. I think a company that has successfully embraced technology as a business enabler is a fintech company, right? It's not enough if you just say that I want to automate or I've got to bring, efficiencies and so on and so forth. It's important for even us in technology to go and look at what our business is. A lot of times there is a divide between, I've even written an article about it, between the technology teams and business. And I think you should close off that divide. You should actually go visit, your business, sit with them, see how they're using your technology.
Yeah.
That's going to give you a proactive way of, wait, you know what, Alec, you're clicking here, you're clicking, what the heck? Why are you clicking in all these places? You should have one click, right? So instead of waiting for that, for you to come tell me and then pick up a ticket, stand in line, it should be better if I can come and, do that once in a while. I think that's very important. You got to be plugged in. Business enabler, you become a business enabler when tech is used effectively, provides the right set of information at the right time, so you can be successful as a loan officer, for example. The other part of it is investment. Investment in technology is important. It's important, but tech folks are pretty expensive. I can tell you that. Technology tools are expensive.
Yes.
Right? Tech is not cheap, so technology tools are expensive as well. So you got, the investment part of it is very, very important. Yeah. I think, man, those two come together, the realization by technology that, we've had the right investments and we have the ability to understand our business well enough to apply and help them do better, to be able to scale, not just business as usual, but should be able to scale and grow, right? It's run, scale, and grow in that fashion. If you think about it, I'll be able to successfully run, the business. Yep. I can now scale the business as demand grows, yep, organically or inorganically grow the business as well.
Yep.
I think that's very key. If you have those things powered by tech, right?
Yep.
That's really what fintech means.
Well, and I've seen some competitors. I do a lot of my work recruiting and meeting other companies, meeting other professionals, and I got introduced to their technology platform, and I'm like, there's 5 people here. And their IT team's 5 people. And the reason it's 5 people is because all their technology is being vendored to somebody else who has the tech team. And so their mortgage IT department is 5 people whose job is to kind of interface between the vendors they're tech with and their loan officers. And I think that your point on, what differentiates a mortgage company versus a fintech company, I think the definition's right. They either are all in on the fintech side and they got the team and they're building it out, or they're vendoring it out and they're trying to manage it that way.
How we take our data, package it into information, what we develop with it, a lot of the algorithms that we write, not the tools that we use, it's the algorithms that we write, becomes a secret sauce for us. And that's your competitive edge, right? If you have those, the idea of having them in tech-enabled form is the fact that you can scale and grow, right? So that's really, if you look at it, at the end of the day, that's what makes you a fintech company, is the ability to be a business enabler. Technology enabling, empowering the business is what a fintech company is all about.
So I want to end on that in a minute, but Andy has an interesting question here that I think a lot of people have, and it gets super granular a little bit, but that's okay. What are some of the key business processes you are currently focusing on transforming via automation or other solutions?
I think we are looking at the next generation of how we manage and handle our customers. So
Yeah.
the customer journey, is going to be very, very transformed very differently, and we are looking at that. Again, loanDepot is a 10-year-old company, so there's not a whole lot of green screen and blue screen and white, and legacy platforms out there.
Right.
So we have an edge over some of the others. And so what we are doing is working on the next generation of things that even some of the tech companies are not thought of. So that's kind of where we're working on to make the consumer journey and experience much better than what it is today. We are already on the forefront of it, but it's going to become much more much better.
Yeah, I always described it as nurse and doctor functions, where the nurse comes in and they take your vitals, they take your blood pressure, they take your temperature, and they kind of gather your paperwork and put it on a chart for the doctor. And today, a lot of that nurse function in mortgage is the collecting of documents, the validation of documents, the reviewing the documents, getting it from A to B, and let somebody else over there review it. And then all of a sudden, all that information gets presented to the loan officer, and then they can have a real conversation. They can be the doctor that comes in and says, what's the best option for you? To your point earlier, Sudhir, like the emotional connection. They can come in and walk somebody through this big decision, help them make a decision, be that consultative professional. And I think one of the fun parts of watching what you're doing in technology is just having those nurse functions start to be picked up by technology and supported by technology. And so all of a sudden now we're getting quicker to an actual decision point. We're getting quicker to serving the customer the way they want to be served. I mean, I always joke that it's hysterical that I can order a pizza and see my pizza tracker being made and know when the pizza is going to be here. And yet in mortgage in general, talking about the industry, there's this huge linear process that like there's not much transparency into. It's hard to see, like, where's my file? Well, it's in a turn time and it's over there somewhere in the cloud. It's like, well, hold on. And so I know that your team's been working hard building into that and streaming it out.
Specifically, Andy's question on what key business process, it's very difficult for you to kind of say what is the key business process, because the home buying process itself is very key and important.
Good point.
So if you divide it between the front end and then the fulfillment side of it,
yeah,
the initial focus that we have is going to be really around between the time you apply a loan and all the way to you getting the loan.
Yeah.
And that's an area we are trying to implement some new tech opportunities to implement some new technologies and tools internally for us.
Well, that's where the mess is. That's where the mess is, because no person comes in with the same profile.
Yeah, and that's why you have to use some new approaches of curation of that data as it traverses, as the customer journey progresses. So for the tech folks, we've got an incredible opportunity with machine learning.
Yeah.
Why? Because data is already there. You apply machine learning algorithms to that data, you can start powering it up and getting that going and providing that information to the processors, the underwriters, the closers. That'll help them significantly. So that's an opportunity that I see. The other part of it is everybody forgets the servicing side of the house.
Yeah, I know. We're all salespeople. We don't want to talk about servicing.
But that's a customer for life opportunity, because what happens is while you're servicing your loan and then the rates go down and things, that's a refinance opportunity. Guess what happens? It's an opportunity for you to come back, right? And refinance. Now, you don't want to lose that customer, let's say. How do I keep that customer as customer for life? They will call you, Alec, if they have the ability, because they'll say, Alec, rates went down. Why don't you give me a call? Why don't we talk about a refi, right? Yep. I think that's important. Now, so that's why the business process we got to look at it in its complete sense, from the front end origination to the operation side, as well as even the back end. That's the opportunity for us to look at this very differently and try and get back to under the 5 steps, if you will. Right? That's really where we have to go, and I think loanDepot is there. We're very excited. We will be there.
This is a great close question by William, which says, well, actually, hold on. We got another one that I think is going to be fun here. Yeah, I like this question. I'm curious for your answer, Sudhir. So Ganesh says, what is the industry benchmark or standard dates for closing a loan, and how do we see it 5 years from now?
I think the industry benchmark or the industry data for average day to close a loan is 45 days. So now here's the problem. That's not the median. That's the average.
Yeah. See, people don't like. Yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Because even me, I was like, well, let's talk about that.
But that's how they give the rating, right? They give you an average, but the problem is that's not the median, right? So that's an issue. But if you really think about it, that is also a pretty long poll. That's even the average. That number is pretty big. So 5 years from now, if you ask me 5 years before now, it was, guess what?
What,
50 days average. So it took us 5 years to cut 5 days down, right? Yep. So not a good benchmark, if you will. I think what needs to happen is there has to be a leader that goes in, leads this, and brings about that change. The others will follow. The competitors will follow, right? Because there will not be a choice. I think that's what we will be.
So William asked this as a closing question, Sudhir, and I love it because I think it'll be a good way to wrap up here. He says, as you close on your first year with loanDepot, what are some of your standout observations you've had up to this point? I think that's a cool way to end our conversation.
Absolutely great company to work for. Outstanding culture. It's a very team-oriented culture. There are a lot of good people in the company that have been here, since founding, and every single one of them are being extremely good to work with. I also have, I don't have organizational, charts and things like that. So I go talk to everybody, right? So, yeah. And I think it's just been there's a culture of can-do attitude. There's a culture of confidence, and also there's a culture of appreciation, if you will, which is very important. There's one thing that I absolutely noticed that I want to make sure that culture is there, and in technology as well as but I didn't have to do anything because it was already there. Inclusiveness. And I think inclusiveness is a very, very important trait. And we are in the forefront of technology. So what else there is? But it's a great company. We have very good leadership. Anthony is an absolute visionary, and he definitely is. And he is changing he's transforming the industry as well in the process. So that's what I would say. My observation is great company, not as challenging to transform as in my previous experiences and roles, because when you have a good company with a good culture, good attitude, good team, it's actually easier to transform than otherwise.
Well, Sudhir, thank you for joining today. Really, really just excited you're on the team. Love working with you. Love our collaborations we've already had together. I mean, you're speaking the truth. You're definitely accessible, reaching out, trying to figure out how the world works and what the business side needs. I loved your example earlier of sitting in the office in Santa Monica with a bunch of loan people, like watching them push buttons. Love our collaboration with your tech team and everybody else. So guys, if this, we're going to wrap down. If you have any more comments and questions, we will get to you. I will answer these to you. Please continue to engage on the social. And again, if you like this, podcast is going out on next week. So subscribe on Apple, and I'd love to see you there. Sudhir, have Have a wonderful day, my friend.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here and looking forward to, future podcasts as well.
Absolutely. We'll bring you back. Take care, everybody. We are out for the day.
Take care.